Oh no, now the knee. Well, that was it. Manu, what's he done there? He's sold the dummy with a knee injury. It's a fake knee injury. That is set up and thrown from Momirovski.
It's the next tackle. He gets an offload. He goes back and gets the football. Probably feels a cramp coming on in the back of his calf. And then just takes off.
Oh, what a beauty. So, you pick which has been the better moment. The bloke kicking the ball back from the traffic at the southern end, or Manu, the cramp, the fibber, and takes off to set up a try.
Welcome back, ladies and gents, to another episode of the Supercoach Tragics podcast. I'm your host, Dan, coach of Badonkadonk. I want to say it's Christmas time because that's what we normally call it now, but I'm going to call it Thanksgiving, purely because we're getting a little bit of our footy feel, knowing that Christmas is just around the corner. So, and in the spirit of Vegas and America, I think that's what we're going to call it, Thanksgiving, because it's a very, very half TLT, not even half. So I'm in two minds whether I'm happy right now. So I'm like a bit split. So, all right, guys, with us tonight, joining us from Off the Bench podcast. Haven't had you on for a while. So good to have you back. Timmy O, mate. How you been?
Yeah, very well, gents. Thanks for having me on. It's always good to come and have a chat about Supercoach with you boys. It certainly has been a while. We did a little bit of stuff through the cricket season, and yeah, no, it's great to be back on and start talking footy. Like, how good's footy back?
Oh, yeah. So exciting. You're lucky you, mate. You got to watch your team this week. I've got to wait another week to watch my team. So
yeah, that's it. That just means you've got no idea what's happening with your team for another week. Mind you, I think there may even be some Broncos changes in the next 48 hours. So I'll be interested to see what goes on.
Yeah, we'll get to that soon. Hopefully we can decipher what's being put out there. So also tonight, as per usual, Glen, coach of Tigers for Life, mate. How you been, mate? Been busy?
Yeah, good, mate. I'm excited too, but my team doesn't play for 3 weeks. Tigers, they don't play a couple of weekends away. They got the bye.
Let's be honest, Glenn. They're not turning up this year, regardless of what round it is.
Mate, they'll be the premiers. What are you talking about? I've no doubt in my mind. Fully favored.
They'll definitely be in the top half of the comp after the first round. So
that's right. They'll be leading it. You're already leading. Go, Benji.
All righty, guys. Let's get started. So before we start, it's just a little housekeeping at the start. So Tragic's overall group, guys, is 818592. Jump in there to win yourselves one of these amazing 2024 Supercoach Champions rings. If you want to get one of these rings for yourself, guys, go to supercoachchampion.com. Use the code Tragics and get 10% off your purchase. It's always a good little handy thing to have. Just everyone chuck in $5 at the start of a comp, and then nice little prize to have at the end of the year. Next up, guys, we've got cash comps. Brody isn't on tonight, so I want to talk about cash comps. We only have the overalls, the $5 knockout comp, which we're going to keep open until towards the end of the year. And we have some unusual ones. We have the last man stands, which is pretty much just don't get the lowest score that week, and you advance the next round. And we have the highest weekly score as well, another open comp. It's an overall group. And all the overall groups are still open. But if you want a head-to-head league, it's only $50 at the moment. Oh, sorry, $20. My apologies. Brod will kill me for that. Only $20. To jump in. And if you really want, I'd also think, while I got you here, Glenn, speaking of cash comps, mate, let's talk about the one you're putting through, mate.
Yeah, so I've got a 20-man head-to-head. I need 9 more players, or 8, I think maybe it is. So what it is, I actually run a thing called the Leg Up Project, helping homeless on the streets. And so what I'm doing is I'm charging $20 for people to go in it. The winner will get 150, second place will get 50, and the rest will go towards the Leg Up, helping homeless. So it's a good cause, guys. Jump in. Just give me a message if you're interested, and I'll give you the details.
Yeah, always good for a head-to-head for a cause as well. Get to have some fun and also do support a good cause. So,
yeah,
get on board, everyone. All right, guys. Last but not least, one of our partners this year is Rugby League Fantasy Pro. Unbelievable stats. He actually last week, I think it was, Adrian took me through in detail, gave me a lesson on how to use this stuff, so I could actually take real advantage on what's on offer in this page. And oh my God, I was like overwhelmed. It was ridiculous. I could have spent another 2 hours because it was just so fun. So make sure, guys, you go to, bear with me, I've got to try and open this screen so I can read it properly. Make sure you go to www.rugbyleaguefantasypro.com. Use code TRAGICS10 for $10 off your first year subscription. So if you haven't been a member before, your first year, $10, make sure you use the code TRAGICS10. Alrighty, guys, let's get started. So, team list. We've got some team lists here, guys. First game, we've got Sea Eagles versus the Rabbitohs. I'm not sure how many surprises I saw on this team, but I'll go through now. We'll talk about the Manly game first. The Manly team first. So, number 1, we've got Tom Travojevic, obviously, Jason Saab. Number 2, Tata Kula. Number 3, Ruben Garrick. Number 4, Jackson Paulo at number 5 with Luke Brooks and Daly Cherry Evans in the halves. Any surprises here in the backs, guys?
Not at all. Exactly how we knew it would be.
No.
I think the only real thing that was potentially close, but I still think this is exactly how it should have been, was the potential for Tommy Talau to replace Jackson Paulo. But I think Talau is more of a centre. So
I agree.
All the news was Garrick was going to be in the centres and on the wing. And then we were just uncertain of whether that was actually going to play out, and it clearly has. But nothing here is different at all to me.
Yeah, if Paulo or Saab were to get injured, Garrick would push out to the wing and then he'd come into the centres, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. I think Garrick in the centres, I think he had like the one good game there where he got a pretty good score, and that was last year. I remember it was actually because I was actually leaving the Jared Croker's 300th game. And I saw it. I was watching on my phone on the bus into the city, and I saw Garrick just go mental, and I'm like, pretty sure I rested him because I was like, he's playing center, I'm not playing him. So, but he doesn't get that many points. He doesn't have the opportunity too much. But with a full preseason playing at center, you never know. He's definitely one to watch, though. Thoughts there, Timmy?
Yeah, look, he's just the point scoring ability that he has is obviously fairly well up there. But whether or not he's going to make the same amount of points in the centres, I think the jury's still out, and I guess it's a bit of a wait and see on him. He's obviously got the Supercoach pedigree when he's on, but ideally you want him at fullback when Big Tommy Turbo goes down. But not that you'd want to wish that badly on anybody this time of year, especially Tommy T. So he does have a track record, but it's a bit of a wait and see.
Yeah,
I actually think he'll be on that left-hand side outside Brooks. I actually like the look of him and Turbo and Brooks this year on that edge. I think that'll be an interesting edge. I agree with you, though, that I prefer him bringing the ball back from a winger. The base is going to be higher, personally, and I think Turbo's good at putting it. I mean, I see Brooks to Turbo out to the winger, which would be Saab. No, not Saab, but it'd be Paulo. Paulo. Yeah, Paulo.
Yes,
and I think that's why there's been a fair bit of traffic heading towards Paulo's way over the last probably 48 hours or so. I think people are having the same logic that maybe Jackson Paulo is a bit of a pod. I think he was about 2% a couple of days ago, and now he's up to 3 or 4%. So a little bit of late movement there on him. Yeah,
Luke Brooks is up to 12.5%. I actually don't hate it. I don't hate it at all. I mean, I said in a couple of chats, I reckon he'll average around 60, 65. People don't agree with me, but we'll see how it plays out. I really like the idea he's got Daly Cherry Evans that'll free Brooks up to just run the ball, and to have players like Turbo outside of him and also Garrick. I just see a lot of movement down that left-hand edge. And who's the second rower down that edge? Is it it's going to be Burbo. So Burbo on that left edge as well. So we'll get to there.
Yeah, I think the only thing holding me back from Brooks, because you've seen some glimpses of him being an okay ball runner at 5'8" when he did fill in there last year a few times. The only thing that scares me about it is every single year we're like, oh, so much potential for this guy. Like, he's always got potential. How old is he now? 31? I
don't like him as a Supercoach prospect. I see him more as opening up other players as Supercoach prospects, i.e. Burbo, i.e. what's the other one? Paulo, and the second row, and Turbo. That's where I see his usefulness coming. I think there's too many there on that edge to steal those points. And interesting, and we'll get back to it after Timmy speaks, but Koala's got a bit of interest too, because he'll be running at Kenner and Cass, which is a kind of still an untried couple. So that could be interesting pod too if people are looking for a pod play. Paulo or Koala. Yeah.
I haven't looked into the stats specifically, but I'd be interested to see how Luke Brooks went when he had Teddy in the side at the Tigers. As far as Supercoach scoring, having a quality fullback to actually run off him. Obviously, he's now got DCE in the side with Manly that he will obviously have a lot more ability to run the team around. So it's not all going to be rest on Luke Brooks like it used to. But yeah, I'd be interested to see what the stats for his are like in comparison to what it's been post Teddy leaving the Tigers, and see if there's a correlation there between maybe a higher score the season that he had a decent fullback running off his hip.
The problem with that is there's a few issues I see with that. First one is he played halfback for the Tigers. He's playing 5'8". DCE is a dominant half. Secondly, Teddy and Turbo are miles apart in how they play. Teddy's more on up the middle. Turbo tends to drift left or right, usually left, as we know. But, I mean, it's still worth looking, just to see. I mean, those stats are always there for a reason, aren't they?
Yeah, I just meant as opposed to having a punter fullback that he's probably had over the last few years. And don't get me wrong, Jerome Buller did really well for them late last season, and they started looking looking like they had a bit more attack once he came on the scene. But outside of him, it's been a fair while since they've had something of that kind of quality in the fullback position.
Absolutely,
definitely. All right, let's move on to the forwards, guys. So Manly forwards, number 8, we got Taniela Paseka. Hooker, we have Lachlan Croker, Josh Alioli at number 10, Hamole Alakwatu at number 11, with Burbo at number 12, and Gerbo at 13. I think this is one of the most predictable teams. Like this, I reckon every predicted team list will look very similar to what this is here. Your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. This was the side. But there's 2 players here that are interesting. I mean, Burbo at points per dollar, should be in everybody's side and at centre wing in that regards. But Ola Kawadu, the unforgotten pod, I think he could be a really interesting pod play as well on that right side outside DCE.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I don't have the cash to stump there because I'm going more middies in my second row forward. But look, I'm a huge fan of Olakuatu. He can turn nothing into something in the blink of an eye. So, and I think with having DCE there and fighting fit at the start of the season, I think it could be anything.
Yeah, I think what did he score in the last round last year? 173.
Yeah.
Knowing that a second row can tuck those kind of numbers out is just crazy. Just to have that on you, and he's always going to be a danger man, whether you have him or not. You'll be watching him no matter what. So, yeah, definitely love me. Hamole looking pretty good. On the bench here, something we need to look at pretty carefully. I see we've got Carl Lawton, number 14, with Corey Waddell at 15, Ethan Bullimore at 16, and Nathan Brown at 17. Once again, very much what we all expected.
Yeah.
So, this kind of here, I reckon this year really puts a. I know that he was never really an option, I don't think, but it really definitely puts a line out of what's his name, Lachlan Croker as a hooker. I know he was never really in the question there, but you look at the bench makeup here. Carl Lawton, he's that player that can actually get in some good minutes as well. So I can see 40 minutes from each player here in the hooker position.
Yeah.
Thoughts there?
Yeah, I agree. That's about right.
The only thing I will say is Carl Lawton, I should say, does love an injury, sad but true. I remember having him his first year at the Titans. I remember having him in my Supercoach team and then basically couldn't get rid of him fast enough. He wasn't getting enough minutes to progress in points and then in value. And then basically I couldn't get rid of him because I think he just sat on my bench for the most of the season. He had, I think it was like a second row hooker duel or something like that at the time. And it was just a wasted trade and a wasted position to start with for the season. And I don't think the bloke's strung 3 or 4 games on together in a row in about the last 5 years. So it'll be interesting to see.
You know, one of the things interesting about this year's Supercoach, we got so much money invested in the 9, the 10, the 7, the 6, a second 7, and 2 1s. What that's literally done is made every other player in between pretty much cheaps or mids, right? I think the person this year that's got the ticker, and I made a team yesterday, and I'm so tempted to go with it, where I stacked the pack. I had Tino, Haas, Grant, right up the top. I had Hopgood, Olakawatu, and then at the bottom I went really cheap, and I only had one of each in the spine. I had 2 fullbacks. The guy that does that and's got the guts to do it, I feel like is the person that's going to take off in a hurry this year. And I really wish I had the ticker to do it. But I'm scared to not own these big guns, right? Like Turbo, Ponga, Brown, Hines, Cleary, Haas, and Grant.
I'm sure someone's doing it, Glenn, but they'll be doing it on the sly with their second or third team.
That's right.
I'm sure someone's going with that theory, though.
Yeah, I need my daughter up here so I can build her team.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Oh, my 4-year-old son, 4-year-old daughter's right into Supercoach. Yeah.
And finally, in the reserves, we've got Jake Arthur, Raymond Tuamalo Vega, Aaron Woods, and Tommy Talau with Brad Parker, old Scorpio. So, as you can see here, they've got 2 backups in the centre wings. Oh, is Talamalo Vega's here, centre wing as well, from memory? So they've got 3 backups there. Anyway, and then they've got a backup in the front row, and Jake Arthur ready to jump in when Brooks shits the bed. But I think I reckon the only real question here, but I don't think it'll happen, is whether Tommy Talau jumps in for Jackson Paulo. But I think that team is going to be pretty much set. All right, moving on to the Rabbitohs. No surprises at fullback. We've got Latrell Mitchell, number 2, Alex Johnson, Isaiah Tass, Richard Kenner at number 4, Jacob Gagai at number 5, Cody Walker at number 6, and Lachlan Ilias at number 7. Obviously, the big talking point here is Gagai. Thought to you, boys? I'll start with you, Glenn.
Yeah, Gagai is in my side, mate. I don't know if I'm going to play him this round versus Manly, but because I like what I've already got in my centre wing, but he's definitely at points per dollar a price. I don't know how long the longevity is of him in the side is my fear.
Yeah,
we got Graham injured. We got quite a lot of injuries in the Bunnies, right?
Yeah, I did a bit of working out last night, so I think obviously we got Whiten back in round 3. I think he takes Kenner's spot. It seems pretty like textbook right there. Kenner's playing in the centres, Gagai on the wing, and then I think when Munro gets back, he takes Gagai's spot, but that's about 2 months away. So we've got a potential 4 weeks worth of games, maybe 3 weeks worth of games for Gagai to prove himself. Because Munro, we all know he's a good little player and he's been looking good, but it doesn't take long for a new up-and-comer just to show how good he is. So if Gagai has a good run, he can win that spot. And that's just my thoughts there. Timmy?
Glenn, if you've got him in your squad, are you planning on playing him this week? In the fact that he's I just mean the fact that he's got obviously playing in this part. So on the off chance that he doesn't, like, I don't know, other cheapies don't get named next week or something like that. So essentially he's just sitting on the pine for you this week?
Well, interestingly, you should say that because that was a thought process for me, right? I thought, if someone else doesn't get named or something else happens, but I'll adjust accordingly. The reason I'm afraid of the wingers in both games, to be honest with, is these fields are a lot smaller over there, which means it's going to be really condensed, which would be good for players like Turbo and Teddy. But some of it'll be a more condensed field, which I think there's not going to be a lot of points scored. I think there's going to be a lot because it's easier to defend when the field's smaller, and it's quite significantly less in width, from my understanding.
Isn't it only a metre either side? I know there's been a lot of hype about it, but I was listening to another podcast earlier this morning, and I thought they said it's only like a metre either side, as in instead of being whatever it was, 68 metres, the field width is now only 66 metres.
It doesn't sound much, but it is. It's almost like an extra player.
Yeah. So the way I look at it is as you're sort of spreading your 13 players across the field, you're talking they're this much closer. Each player is this much closer. So
if there's any side that can do it, it's the Bunnies, right? They are very good at creating room on both their edges, especially their left edge. But yeah, I mean, and Ilias has a nice depth pass that could get out that way. So I mean, Like, I don't hate it, and he has got good base. So what I saw from Gagai, I like. I think he'll do enough. I think he'll do enough.
I'm going to throw
But
a little
I'm
spanner
not-
in the works here. Kind of going off what you're saying about the defensive on the edge. We all know how good Cooler is defensively on the edge. So he's going to be defending on the right edge, which is up against the Rabbitohs left edge. Do you think the Rabbitohs go right to counter that? Because we all see how good Cooler. Everyone knows it's like not a secret. Cooler has great defensive reads. He's got some of the best base as a centre wing without
But
scoring.
he'll be running then at Garrick and Paulo, who are both good defenders too. I mean, Garrick's a pretty good defender too.
Yeah, true. I think it's going. That's why I think you're right. I'm looking at the fact that there's some good defenders on the edges. I just think that they might be going for the middle. It might be a few maybe try time for Olakawatu. It might be some Lachlan Croker sneaking through. It might be I reckon it might be a bit more in the middle.
I definitely see a scenario where they score on their edges. That's where the Bunnies are at their strength.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let's look at the Rabbitohs front row, forward pack. Let's have a look. So we've got Tavita Totola, number 8, Damien Cook in the hooking role, Sean Kepi, number 10, Kean Kulamattangi at number 11, with Jai Arrow at number 12, and Cam Murray locking it up. This looks pretty much the same way I thought it was going to look. Only other, I think people were thinking maybe or hoping that Duncan would get named over Arrow, but that was pretty much never going to happen. So, any thoughts here, Timmy?
Yeah, look, it's one of the guys at work I had a chat with this morning is really keen on Sean Kepi, and the guy's a rugby league coach. He works in with our coaching staff, with our academy school of rugby league. But yeah, I just don't see it. He's really high on Kepi. I started last season with Sean Kepi, and again was just one that I went, geez, I wish I didn't go that way. I don't see him being any more than a meat and potatoes sort of plotter, 40 minutes, 40 points, something like that. He was sort of really keen and kept saying, oh, yeah, but what about his offload? And what about his offload? And I went, yeah, look, I just don't see it. I don't see it. Yes, he's 360K or whatever the hell it is that he's priced at. But I think for the extra 40 or 50K, whatever it is, I think I'd prefer Junior Totola in there than Sean Kepi. So I think Totola showed a couple of seasons ago that he does have a 65 in him quite easily if he gets the minutes and he does have an offload and can do some of the attacking stats. I don't see Sean Kepi as being that kind of bloke. And I think for the extra, 40 or 50K, whatever the hell it is, that I'd much rather prefer to have Totola rather than Kepi.
Yeah, I'm a bit I have Totola in my team. He's been like my little sneaky guy. I think he's underpriced for what he can put out there. But then you look at the bench. You got Tom Burgess out there. You got David Miley. You got Havili is more a threat to me, I think, for minutes taking off the front row because he actually can play longer minutes. And Tom Burgess can do a pretty good job in long minutes as well. So I think Kepi comes off first, and they leave Totola on for a little bit longer, and that's when Burgess comes on, and then I reckon they get a few more minutes to Totola. So that's my theory anyway. Kepi's got some great output for short spurts, but I don't think he can play enough minutes to be. He'll probably make money, but is it going to be enough to warrant that owning him? I don't know if it will be.
I could see him being the kind of guy that plays 20 minutes and maybe doesn't even come back on. It's when you've got Jai Arrow that can go from the middle and then sort of move into other positions in the forward pack. Go from the edge and move into the middle. Yeah, I don't know. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if Sean Kepi still only gets 25, 30 minutes, something like that. And that might be a case if he starts the game, plays straight, and then doesn't come back. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. And I'm really interested to see the role of Jai Arrow. I don't have him in my team at the moment. In my front row currently, I've got Max King and Ruben Cotter, both sitting at around just under 450K. And I've been tossing up whether or not to put – I had Totola for much of the preseason, but, tossing up whether or not to put maybe even both of Arrow and Totola in there as a substitute for those two players and bank the 150, 200K and put it somewhere else. But I'm pretty keen on Max King.
Yeah, no, you go, Glenn.
I was going to say a few talking points there. So firstly, Jai Arrow will initially we were told that Kalamatangi was going to move to the left edge and Jai Arrow to the right. But people got trapped into Arrow a few years ago, and he did exactly that. He came on at left. Host will come on for him in that position, and then there's a chance that Kalamatangi moves to the left and Host goes right. And then, and you're right, and that Arrow moves into front row. But for me, he's a watch. But he's the most one that a lot of people have jumped on. Like you, I've got Hassan Ming, but I've had Kodra Ming will most likely be my starting front row. Depending on the next team list, and if I need to draw money from anywhere. But the Kalamatangi is interesting for me. I think that if I find him on that left edge anywhere near it, I'll be all over that and rushing to get him. But I caution people on Arrow and Kepi. I do like Totola. I think points per dollar Totola makes sense. I do believe he'll get better minutes than the other two.
Yeah. One thing I will say about Jai Arrow, a lot of people are talking about him and they're saying, oh, he's good value. I think it's just because you see that when you have a certain amount of budget left in your salary cap and then you see him, you go, oh, that's a big name. But, like, I ask myself, like, is his role going to change from the last 2 years? I don't think it is. I think he's got his role. He's going to do the same thing he did every single year, start from the edge and move to the middle. And to me, he's not going to get crap points. He's going to get average points. So you're paying for exactly what you're going to get. Yeah. So I think at the start of the year, you're going to want that salary cap building player that's going to help. I think Arrow is a great draft pick. He's that guy that's going to plonk out probably between 40 and 60 points every single week, probably. And it's safe to get. But I just can't see his role changing at all.
No, I agree, mate. I think he's a 50-55, and that's sort of where he's at. I don't think he obviously had some glimpses of quality when he was at the Titans, but I think he basically, I don't know, in my opinion, hasn't hit the form that he did as a Bronco since he left. So, I mean, that's only my opinion, but yeah, I don't know. I don't see what others are. Sorry, Glenn.
Sitting at 18th man is Tallis Duncan, and I am surprised. I mean, I said to everyone he won't get named, but that guy will come into that side soon. And why I'm mentioning him is people who are jumping on Cameron Murray, I'd be cautious, because if he comes into that side, Tallis Duncan, they'll both share that lock position.
I love the glimpses of Tallis Duncan we saw last year. He was
absolutely.
He'd come on when the forwards are tired and just break through them, and it was so good to watch some young fella having some fun. So,
yeah.
All right, speaking of the reserves, we've already touched on the bench there, but we'll go to the reserves. Tallis Duncan, Michael Cheekham, Jakai Mitchell, Peter Mamazulis, backup hooker, and Dean Hawkins, backup half. So I don't see many changes here. I think Tallis Duncan's one to watch, but I really think this sounds really weird. We kind of touched on it earlier. I can see, I know that won't happen. As if I was the coach, I would probably have Thomas Burgess starting and Kepi coming on that offloader in the last 20. And then get those tied forwards. Because I reckon Tom Burgess is a more solid forward and Kepi is that more X factor. Like you said, I offload. I reckon that's what they should do. I'm not the coach, so it won't happen, but that's what I reckon should happen. Alrighty, guys. What I will do now is we'll talk about the next game. So bear with me while I bring the next game up. Let's have a look. Roosters versus the Broncos. And YouTube video. It is up now for our YouTube viewers. So, Roosters, we'll start with the backs. We've got James Tedesco, Daniel Tupou, Billy Smith, Joey Manu, Joe Sawali, Luke Keary, and Sam Walker. Pretty much exactly what we thought. No surprises at all here, Glenn.
Yeah, mate, I can't get it up on my bloody screen. So can you just read it out again, Roosters? Sorry, mate.
So you got James Tedesco.
My computer, I want to hit it.
Yeah, James Tedesco at fullback, mate. We've got Daniel Tupou and Joe Sawali on the wings, Billy Smith and Joey Manu centre, and Luke Keary and Sam Walker in the halves.
Yeah, no surprises there. You know what? It's really stupid. I actually went and bought the team list today so that I didn't have to go through all this hassle, and I only just remembered. But yeah, look, nothing at all there that surprises me. God, I'm just on a roll, aren't I?
I will let you continue on, Glenn, because I remember there's been some words in some of the chats, and I know you got some big high props there on James Tedesco, mate.
I do. I actually just think paying over there, I just think that points per dollar, I'm really tempted to go Tedesco Turbo. And I just generally think that the one thing about Teddy and Turbo is they run the ball a lot, which means you're going to get your base. And then anything that's attached that on top of that is a bonus, right? The other bonus of Tedesco is he's 700K, right, which is 100 and something K, I think 180K and 100 and whatever it is between Ponga and Turbo. So that's a lot of coin that you can invest somewhere. And you're trying to say to yourself, is there enough there that I can get those points together with a Teddy RDS combo as opposed to a Turbo, broker or whatever his name is, Bostock, however you say his name.
The way I've looked at it, and I've talked about this on our Off the Bench podcast, it's almost dollar for dollar, Teddy and Turbo versus KP and Paps. Now, I don't know. Teddy is not the Teddy from 3 or 4 years ago. I'm not saying he can't replicate that again, but I just think Father Time's slowly starting to catch up with him. I'm happy to eat my words, but I'm not convinced. As for
so you would take Pappenhausen over Teddy?
Sorry?
The combination.
So what I'm saying is it's almost dollar for dollar. Ponga and Paps is the same amount as Teddy and Turbo.
Yeah, so right, gotcha.
I've gone Ponga and Paps, and I know some of the boys on the Off the Bench podcast have gone the other way with Teddy and Turbo. So we did talk about this a couple of weeks on one of our Sunday shows, and yeah, look, I like the upside of Ponga in that I just think at the moment he's probably got more point scoring ability in the Knights with their draw and everything else rather than the other two. But it's really hard, isn't it? Because Teddy's obviously been down on point scoring for a while. Turbo's obviously been made of glass the last couple of seasons. So it is a tough call, and I'm just putting Ponga ahead of those two. And at which point, with the money that I've got left over, I think Paps is probably a better shout.
Yeah, I've got Turbo and Ponga, and I can't let either one of them go. But if I was to let one go, I would go to Teddy. I'm not going near Pappenhausen. And as you know, Pappenhausen's my favourite player. I love Pappenhausen. He scored more points than any other player in the history of the game 2 years ago in the first 13 rounds. But I am really concerned. I mean, he's done a lot of injuries to himself. He's so thin and skinny at the moment. I don't know. He looks very fragile to me. He just doesn't look like he's got the confidence that he had when I watched him play. But look, it would not surprise me if Pappen comes out. He's in a great Melbourne Storm side, which in my opinion has the best spine in the competition. So, you got Grant there, Munster, Hughes and Pappenhausen. That's a formidable spine. So, yeah.
There's a few. I think there's a lot of options at the fullback position, and it doesn't matter what you pick. You're going to have four fullbacks that you are going to be death riding every single week, and then that's people. So, like for example, I'm going a little bit different than all you guys. I've gone to two kickers, so I've gone Ponga and Latrell in my team. So I think that's just me having that security of the kicking, and just a quiet one. I sneakily think that Trell is going to be a mad show pony over in Vegas, and he's going to just try and get involved, just try and show off. And I reckon it's going to be exciting to watch this week. But yeah, now I've got to worry about Drinkwater, who's getting not spoken about as much as you think. I've got to worry about Reece Walsh, who can pull anything out of his ass when he wants to. Then I've got to worry about Turbo. I've got to worry about Pappenhausen. There is so many people that are scary. So I'm just going to try and hedge my bets and go the two kickers. And that's what I'm going for.
Drinkwater's a good shout, mate. I've been looking at Drinkwater myself, and I'm not letting go of Ponga, right? I'm not letting go of Ponga, and it really is a debate as to the other one. And you're right, you could throw the dice and land on any one of them, and any one of them could come out and perform, and any one of them could come out and underperform. So, I think on every person, trust your gut on your fullback, and hope it rolls that way. And if whoever you pick, stick with your gut. Don't start, he did well this week, start chopping and changing, because that's where you'll get yourself fucked up, messed up.
Got to put the expletives at the end of this one. Make sure the mature audiences only now.
Sorry, guys. I don't usually.
I'm glad it wasn't me first.
Alrighty. And one player that I like in this as well, who's a decent option if you want to save a few dollars, getting talked about a little bit at the start of the season, not so much now. Sam Walker, I don't mind him as a little backup option in the halfback position there. A few other options there that I've gone over instead of him. However, I did manage to sneak him into my draft team last week. So he's my backup half. I've got two halves that are very similar. I've got Ben Hunt and him in my halves in that draft. So quite good to have that sneaky little option there. But I like what Sam Walker can do. He's hasn't really thrown that Harbour Bridge pass too often recently, but I think he's matured more as a player.
The other thing about Sam Walker, mate, is points per dollar. He plays every game up to the bye and including the bye. Like I said to you, the person that's smart enough to pick the right second half and, as in the half, the amount of money that you can invest somewhere, I think you can possibly make up that difference. I like the Sam Walker shout, mate. I really do.
Yeah, I'm too scared to have him in my team because right now I'm getting these paranoia because I'm selecting my team and I'm seeing too many green dots right now. Because I feel like we're using those green dots as our little magnet. They're playing. If I'm going to pick too many players from one team or from 4 teams, it kind of makes it, which is kind of what you don't want to do that when every week there's a new buy round. So if you have too many players from the one team. So I've got 9 players at the moment in my current team that are playing this weekend. Who are they? I'm not telling you, but I will
nice
say.
Try, Glenny.
I will say though, like I had a look at it and broke it down game by game. I've got 3 from one team, 2 from another, 1 from another. So it looks way worse having 9 players playing this weekend, but it's only the maximum of 3 per team, which is kind of my golden rule that I go off. So.
Yeah, but Dan, I think there's merit to it, mate, because any curveballs that get thrown next week are not going to affect you as much as what it's going to affect the rest of the field. So you might find that, like you said, they're going to deliberately try and put on a bit of a show over in Vegas and try and capture that US audience into our game. So, look, I see a lot of merit in being heavily Broncos, Roosters, Manly squads. So yeah, look, I get it.
And one other thing as well, one thing I will say though is I've only got 3 out of those 9 that are actually on the field playing.
That's what I was about to say. I have 6, but only 4 of them are playing. The other 2 are actually on the pine, which is obviously Wilson. Everyone's probably got and Gagai.
Yeah, I think you'll find that we see the green dot and we go, all right, he's playing. There's no doubt now he's made the team, so you can get him into your team. I don't need to play him, but I'm putting him on my bench. So
yeah.
Is Gagai? I haven't really looked too much into it, just because I've had a busy couple of days at work since he's been named. But is he actually bottom dollar?
Yeah, sure is.
Close enough. Yeah, 220 or something.
No,
yeah, 220 is bottom dollar.
No, it's 204.
Yeah, right. Is he? Yeah.
Which is bottom dollar.
Yeah. Bottom dollar. Yeah.
Alrighty, guys. Let's move on to the forward. So we all kind of had a feeling this was going to happen. Spencer Leniu starting at number 8, Brandon Smith at number 9, Lindsay Collins number 10, Siwai Wong at number 11, Tupanua in number 12, with Victor Radley locking everything up. I am so nervous having any Roosters second rower on my team. They are stacked for quality second rollers from their whole team. Thoughts here? I'll go to you, Tim.
Yeah, look, I've really tossed this up over the last couple of days, bringing Tupanua in. I've had Wong for most of the preseason, and I've just gone a little bit cold there. I think if Tupanua gets the spot, then I think it's probably Tupanua's there to lose. I know that's not very exciting, but yeah, I think they would have spent enough time trying to nut out which of the 2 RFs they actually wanted to play. And I think, at the moment he's probably won the battle. He scored a try. Was it last weekend in the trial or the weekend before? And it looked all right. So look, he's got a lot of hair and a lot of point scoring ability for Supercoach.
Yeah, I'm. There's just too much to me. We all know what he can do. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a great player, great upside, great. I think if I knew he'd had that spot, I'd be all over that at his price point. When you see the quality of Angus Crichton, who's else? Matt Butcher, he's not there as well. all that could be in that spot. And then we've got I know he's not playing, he's on the outside there, but I guess kind of Watson utility as well. There's some quality names that played that back row spot, and they're just waiting on the edge. It's like I just don't. They could be, you know what, Trent Robinson could be going. You know what, these are the young fellas because Tupanua is still pretty young, I think. But I don't know, Glenn, any thoughts here, mate?
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about here. So let's start with Spencer Lenu, right? So a lot of people are starting Spencer Lenu. I'm only going to warn you once, don't, right? JWH is coming back. He's only going to play 30, 35 minutes. I think he's one of the best impact forwards in the game. So does my son. And he is in a Rooster side that, you know, is much similar to Penrith. They both have upside to them. But I don't like Spencer Lenu as your main front rower. Not when you've got players like Ming, Cotter, and a whole lot of other hosts that I think are better than that. I want to move to Wong and Silly Tupanua. I think Silly Tupanua, that's his position. I don't think he loses that, and I think he plays 80. But let's look at the bench, right? So you've got Smith, comes on for Radley, right? You've got the two big forwards. Butcher will come on for Radley, I meant to say. Smith will come on for Smith. And then you've got the two forwards, White and May, that will come on for the two forwards, Collins and Spencer Lenu. I think Collins out of all them plays the most minutes in the front row, and I think Nat Butcher will play a fair few minutes at lock and then move back into front row. So that's I'm not saying that's how it'll play out. That's just my version of what I see unfolding. But yeah, I wouldn't be afraid of Wong and Stilly Tupanua. I'd be more inclined to go with Satilli based on points per dollar and job security. But Wong's done enough. But the one that makes me nervous is definitely Angus. I can see a scenario where he, you know, comes back into the bench at least, which will make a lot of super coaches very nervous.
I actually like, at an NRL level, what they've done here.
Yeah.
Because we all see what Nat Butcher can offer through the middle. He's good on the edge, but I think he's a little bit wasted on the edge. He's aggressive. If he comes on in that middle, he changes that momentum of the team. I'm going to use this as a bad example, but same as with the Warriors when Dylan Walker comes on. He changes the momentum of the team as that utility play. That's what Nat Butcher does for the Roosters when he comes on. And if he does get like a Madison type role where he plays off the bench and gets 60 minutes, even he's an option because he gets way more bigger PPM when he plays those in the middle. But that's just something I'll be watching. Definitely not. I'm just too scared to do it. So
yeah.
Alrighty, let's have a look at the bench now. We kind of touched on it before. We've got Sandon Smith, Nafil White, we've got Nat Butcher and Terrell May. We mentioned before about Spencer Lenu on the starting team right now. I think even though we know Terrell May's on the bench, he's probably a safer option. What are your thoughts there, Glenn? Then
I agree. It's a scenario where Terrell May starts and Spencer Lenu comes off the bench. The coach of this side, Robertson, has a history of doing that, naming a side and then readjusting the forwards just before game starts. I actually think that that's a possibility. Terrell May could go. I also think that he'll play enough minutes to be Supercoach relevant, even from the bench. Although I'm not doing it.
I was going to say, is he in your side at the moment, Glenn?
No, he's not.
I think he's probably too much money to spend for what. Like, there's a chance he could make money, but he's a little bit higher price than what you'd really want for a bench front rower.
Yeah, that's right.
I feel like you get a little bit less points, but with more money from a Sam Hughes and a Willison. I think, but you wouldn't have Terrell as your second front rower. You'd have him as your benchy, and to me, I think Sam Hughes and Willison are the two benchies that you should be getting, unless you want to start back and go a bit harder.
Yeah,
just out of interest, Jensen, and feel free to not answer if you don't want to. I totally understand. But what's your front row looking like at the moment? Are you sort of going to maybe, I wouldn't say middies because 550 is not necessarily a midi, but have you guys both gone the Payne Haas route or have you gone a different direction?
I have Haas at the moment with Ming, and then I have Willison and Hughes on the bench. But Haas and Grant are in my side, but they're the first to be robbed, which means that the minute the team list comes out and I need money to be drawn for some way, Haas will be the first person. I'm much more prepared to take money off a front rower, as good as Haas is, and invested elsewhere than I am off a spine player, if that makes sense. So I always build my side in a way where I'm ready to rob. This is where, this is where I'm going to pilfer. And if I do that, I'll be running Cotter and Ming. I think Cotter and Ming are really good points per dollar options.
I'm going to sound like a bit of a cop out here, but yeah, I do have Haas and Totola, my two starters, and I have set my team up to have a lot of mid ranges. So I believe there's a very few players in my team that have a risk of not being named, and it's every single player. And I'll say the biggest risk I have not being played in my team right now would be KPP from the Knights, and that's not that expensive. That's not very cheap, so I can always move around. But if, let's say, KPP doesn't play, which it's a very high chance that might happen, I will then go Haas down to Ming, have another very safe front rower with Totola, and then I can upgrade to say, I don't know, one of the other billion mid ranges. I haven't got Lane in my team. Yeah. That's the thing that a lot of people are a bit shocked by. I just don't see Lane's role changing.
I got rid of it too, mate.
And the way I've kind of looked at it is I think it's going to be easier to turn like a Ming or Cotter into Haas than it is a Sam Walker into Nathan Cleary. That's just my opinion. I think you can afford to similar thing, I guess, with like I've got Reece Robson in hooker at the moment. I think it's going to be easier to turn Reece Robson into Harry Grant than it is to turn, again, like Sam Walker or one of those 550, 650K guys into Cleary. So I've gone the way of starting with Hines and Cleary and actually starting with Dylan Brown in 5'8" as well. So that's where I've spent my cash. I just think those three positions are going to be much harder to take mid-ranges and upgrade into those three players than it is like a Payne trying to find the money to move 550, 600K front rower up to Payne Haas. Similar thing, I guess, once David Fafita comes in, I think it's going to be much easier to move, do a one up, one down in your second row or something like that to bring Fafita in than it is, again, to try and find the money to go to Cleary or Hines or scrounge somewhere to get Dylan Brown in your 5'8".
Yeah, I like it because you're technically like my cheapest player in my second row is KPP. So that means that I can easily go one up, one down to get Fafita if I need to. But I'm time to wait there. Hope they can build some cash up for me later on. But we digress, guys. We'll move on to the Roosters reserves. Some big names in the reserves. I know we got Patella Porga, Angus Crichton, Egan Butcher, Zach Docker-Clay, and Connor Watson. That's some big names in the reserves there. And we all know Trent Robinson loves to play silly buggers, as Glenn alluded to earlier. There's some names that could definitely slide into that starting team. Glenn?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I missed that. I was reading through all the top 20 of in the Cheapy Bible, and I can't remember the name, the guy that's just come in from the Storm.
Bradley.
Yeah, Bradley. Do you have him at second row, mate?
I will be going him if I know he gets named. I'll be getting all my KPPs and all my orange dots or whatever and turning them into the green dots, and he's the first one that I'll be getting because I've seen some good things with him.
Yeah.
Okay, no worries. So what was the question you asked me, mate?
I just said mentioned the reserves for the Roosters. We've got Talagay Porgo, Angus Crichton, Egan Butcher, Zach Docker-Clay, and Connor Watson. The names in that reserve list could mean that Trent Robinson could play silly buggers all he wants. There's some good names there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Connor Watson's a really big chance of coming on for Sandon Smith. I mean, it blows my mind that he's not in the starting side, and if he's not, why? So he's one, and there is even a world where even Egan Butcher or Angus Crichton could sneak up there. So, I mean, Egan Butcher was one of their standout players last year. So, I mean, obviously he's probably rewarding training. I don't know. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that unfolds. Like, Roosters do have a habit of changing stuff around at the last minute. So it wouldn't surprise me to see at least Connor Watson come on, mate.
Yeah, I think with Egan, I think there's a lot of potential there for him to be a good player. But God, he's got some bloody errors in his game. I was like, I'm not even going for the Roosters, and I'm feeling like horrible that he keeps dropping the ball. Like who was the player that had a shocker on the weekend? It was that's it, Liam Knight. You had a Liam Knight-like style run there, Egan Butcher, for a while, where you do something good and then you just keep dropping the ball. And but when he does do something good, Egan Butcher, it looks good. But I think, I'd love to see Connor Watson or Angus potentially go up into that starting spot. But
I think that the tough part is those three players that we've talked about. It's got to be difficult because you'd like to think those three guys would be in the 17 at pretty much any other club in the comp.
Absolutely.
You look at the experience, even the experience that Connor Watson's had, and he obviously been a little bit of a journeyman, and he's now come back to the Roosters. But you'd like to think that they brought him back to the Roosters for a reason. You can't imagine that he wants to play the same role that he was playing at the Knights as a bit part player. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand he's had his injuries and illnesses, but you look at Angus and how hard they chased to get him out of Souths. And 5 years later, he's not even making the 17. So, it's interesting. They've obviously spoilt for riches down there at the Roosters, but that's never been an issue, has it?
They've always had incredible depth, the Roosters. That's why, when I look at sides to see who I think can win the premiership, I look at depth and I look at bench. The bench is who's coming on when who comes off. And you just said a second ago that Angus Egan would be in any other club. I would go as far as to say Watson, Docker, Clay, Butcher, Crichton and Pygo would all be first-up starters in just about any other club. So I rate every one of those players. So that just shows you the strength of the depth of the Roosters. They are all incredibly good players.
Yeah, Docker Clay's been doing the hard yards in reserves and on the bench and for a long time now. He's been an up-and-comer for a while. He's just been doing those hard yards. Being, I guess you could say, Mr. Reliable, just there if anyone falls. He's ready to go. So,
yeah, that's right.
Alrighty, guys. Let's look at the Broncos team. Starting at the fullback, Reece Walsh, Jesse Arthur, Tony Staggs, Selwyn Cobber playing in the centres there with Dane Mariner on the wing, Ezra Mam and Adam Reynolds on the bench, in the half. So I don't really see anything too different here. I guess the Mariner on the wing, but that was 50-50 there between him and Oates, I thought. We'll go to you, Timmy.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and I've talked about this a lot on our Off the Bench podcast. Look, Kevy came out about a month ago and said it's Corey's spot, and just kept saying it's Corey Oates' spot, and right through the media and through all the preseason, he keeps just bringing it back to it's Corey Oates' spot, and now for round one, he hasn't named him. So, look, it is interesting whether or not that's just a kick in the bum, whether Oates's not fit, whether he hasn't come back from holidays the same way. Who knows? Obviously, he did have a few injury issues throughout last season, so maybe there's some niggles there that we don't know about, and which has changed his mind. But yeah, it's an interesting back line. There's not too much out there in comparison to what I thought it was. But yeah, look, I honestly thought it was Oates's spot, and now it's obviously not.
Mm-hmm. They've got plenty of other options available. I know, like when they're back in Australia, because probably not everyone will travel with them. But they've got some really good options on that wing there. Like you've got Deloise Hoyter, another gun who can do some good things as well.
Pereira.
Yeah, Pereira. There's so many options, and Pereira's a known try scorer. So is Oatsy. Even Hoyter has done some good things, and I just think there's so many options there which tells me that whoever gets that spot, they're going to be playing hard. They're going to fight to keep that spot. It's going to be interesting to see who gets it. So, good to watch. Glenn, anything here, mate, that stands out for you?
Yeah, a lot of people are going near Jesse Arthur's, and I don't hate it, but I'd be very conscious or mindful of their job security on both Mariner and Arthur's. I think Staggs and Cobbo's job security is pretty solid, but I'd be nervous around the job security on both of those players. As you said, and they've got Tristan Saylor as well. They've got quite a bit of depth. I actually rate Pereira. I mean, it must be niggles or something going on because he'd be a starter in any club. I really like Pereira. I've always have.
It's an interesting one because when he came up from the Dragons, he was a starter at the Dragons, and then he came to the Broncos, and he's basically just ridden off into the sunset. So it is an interesting one there.
The other player of interest that we need to talk about is the Ezra Mam, of course. I mean, he's got a lot of ownership as well. I don't like it. I've owned Ezra Mam when he was cheap and he was a pain then. So, I mean, paying up for him, I think, like he can have those big games in him, but he doesn't have the base. He'll get you 30 and 40 every game. He's good there. But whether he gets you them up scores, when you've got like the Dylan Browns, and there's a whole lot of others I think are just better points per dollar than Ezra Mann. But a lot of people are liking him. He's fairly highly owned.
Yeah, I think his price. He's sitting at that really nice price there. But I also think one of the main reasons he's up and down is because we have that guy in the back there in the number 1 jersey that loves to just get points right at the end, and he steals those points. So Ezra it's either going to be him or Ezra that get the points, and it usually ends up going to Reece Walsh. That's my theory anyway.
And I think still fresh in people's minds is that he got those 3 tries in the grand final. Ezra Mann is an incredible talent, and I'm glad they shored him up for the Broncos because he is an incredibly good footballer. But as you said, there's others there that can steal the points. Adam Reynolds, look, that left-hand side's quite lethal now. And Reece Walsh, the one you just mentioned, does tend to go left. But as you pointed out, Ezra Mann gives it to Walsh. Walsh either, sets it up for someone else, and Walsh, being the floating fullback, will get the points every time.
Yeah, that's it. But I think I did have something to say, but I've definitely blanked out a little bit there, so I'll probably avoid talking now. Getting pretty late. Alrighty, let's move on to the forwards, guys. Number 8, we got Corey Jensen. In the hooking role, we have Billy Walters, Payne Haas at number 10, Brendan Piakura at number 11, Jordan Ricky 12, and Paddy Carrigan at number 13. I guess we'll go to you, Timmy, mate. Your Broncos, mate. Nothing really stands out here at all. Maybe besides the Corey Jensen, but that was kind of spoken about too.
No, that's actually how I thought they would line up. I thought he would get his starting gig this year. He did his time last year since moving from the Cowboys, and look, he's been a really solid player for us. He's very much meat and potatoes. Goes out there, does his job, no fuss, sort of front row forward. He keeps a fairly clean nose while he's out there, and look, I actually like him as a player. I don't like him so much as a super coach option, although he is fairly cheap. But look, as a player for the Broncos, I think he's a great player to start, take the sting out of the game, and then maybe bring someone like Big X on after 20 minutes and see what he can do.
Yeah. Anything else, Glenn?
Well, Piakura, obviously.
Yeah, definitely Piakura.
I mean, do you think he plays 80 minutes on that edge, Piakura?
Yeah, he does. Sure.
Let me look at that. Yeah, I do too.
As long as he's fit, obviously he's got his knee issue at the moment that they've sort of talked about, which took him off the field early in the last game. But if he's fit, I don't see him moving from that left side second row position. I think it's going to be really handy too, having him running off Ezra Mann or Mann running off him, whichever way you want to look at it. So I think
he's on the other side. He'll be outside Reynolds, mate. He plays on the right.
Yeah. I think you'll see he did play on the right last year, but he's taking over Capel's spot, and you'll see Pretty Ricky always plays on the right there as well. So I think they've earmarked him to play on the left this year.
Piakura, have they?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I just know that he's a right side player, and
he did play right side. Was it Pretty Ricky or Ricky was out last year for a little bit between niggles, and then Piakura came in and played on the right.
Ricky's out the right.
I call him Pretty Ricky. He's a handsome fella.
One of the things I like about Piakura, apart from the lines that he runs, I actually preferred him outside Adam Reynolds, just between you and me. I prefer him there than I do outside Ezra Mann, to be honest, because that left-hand side's so dominant with players like Walsh. I just see him getting cut out. So that's actually worrying to me. It's actually flipped me on him. But in reverse to that, I was going to say one of the things I do like about Piakura, and I like these players like Angus and Madison, they drift in to defend, which means that lifts their base a little. Those second rowers that drift in and defend at lock, I like those kind of second rowers, and Piakura does do that. But I actually don't like him, guys, on the left-hand side at all. And Kate was a good example of it.
He played on the left-hand side on the trial, didn't he, Timmy?
Mm-hmm.
And he
I didn't even notice.
Yeah, he scored 2 tries.
There you go.
So that's it. No, but I think you're right though, because did they have the full strength team? They did have the full strength team, didn't they?
Pretty close.
They would have had so they would have had Ezra then. So it could be a good thing. I think Capel just did his job. Capel always just does his job. I think they've looked at and they've seen the quality that Piacora has, that flair with his footwork at the line. I think they've said
But
play a natural game. Don't go stupid, but play a natural game.
have a look how much more Capewell got when he was at Penrith as opposed to what he got at the Broncos. You know, I'd be interested to look them stacks. See, I'm going to do that tomorrow. I'm being straight with you. I'm turned off Piacora on left hand edge. I just think that left edge is so lethal for points that I see a lot of cutout balls to him, cutting him out altogether.
Mm.
See, I look at it the other way. I look at it the other way in that there's so many options now on the left-hand side that instead of them going out to the winger all the time, it might just be that little short ball. I think he runs good lines and good angles. I can see a little short ball coming off Ezra Mam because they're too busy focusing on Ezra, too busy focusing on Reece Walsh, and it'll just be a little short one and Piacora will go straight through.
He's a very good player, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing that this is kind of reminding me of. We've had conversations about this in the past that have kind of gone the other way with the lethal Rabbitohs left edge, and where everyone's talking about how we like the left edge with Kulamatanga, we like the left edge with Whiten throwing to with the Latrell out there as well. And I just see with that edge, there's going to be a lot of points available. They'll probably score a lot of their tries, probably the majority of their tries that side, which means that there might be, I see a lot of high-scoring games, which means they're getting a lot of points to share with the Broncos.
Just on that, I see a scenario where Tallis Duncan comes into lock and Cameron Murray goes to second row and Jai Arrow goes to the bench. Not this week, but that's a possibility. Where Cameron Murray plays on one edge and Koloamatangi on the other, which means that Koloamatangi would go left, Murray would play right, which is his preferred position when playing second row, and then Tallis Duncan in lock. If I'm the coach, that's the side I'm throwing out. And I'm surprised.
Alrighty, all right, there's random door closing in my house. All right, let's move on to the interchange. We're definitely behind schedule, but we love a chat, so let's go on to the interchange. Tyson Smoothie did some good work on the weekend. I actually really like watching him play on the weekend. Fletcher Baker, Kobe Hetherington, and Xavier Willison. The sneaky little team list leaking that got leaked out, was it yesterday morning? And then if everyone's saying that, Willison misses out, turned out to be false. It looks like Xavier Willison does make the bench spot. Timmy?
I'm going to be interested to see this, whether that's what really eventuates. I think Marty Capau, if they go the size and the obviously Big X is a big unit himself, but whether or not they go the experience of Marty, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see which way they go. Do they go the experience of Marty Capau, or do they go the youth and next up and coming big bull in Xavier Willison?
Question for you here, Glenn, mate. If Xavier Willison doesn't get picked in the name, that doesn't get dropped out of the 17, do you still pick him in your team?
Probably not. I think there's enough players, points per dollar, that you can put into that position with players like Hughes, McKaylee. There's a whole lot of others that are, Matt Fafita. So probably not. But having said that, I wouldn't be too panicked about him in the second row because he will get a shot at some point. He definitely will. And I agree with Kim. I think there's a scenario where Marty Capau starts on experience. But, geez, what I saw of that Willison I liked, and Hughes from the Dogs. I like them both.
Played 2 trials, scored 2 tries. So, admittedly, he's sort of a fringe first grader playing against young guys in the Q Cup when they played against the Winnemere Seagulls. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. I really like him as a player. One of the other coaches that I work with at school, he had a lot to do with him when he was younger, coming through the grades in the Q Cup. And he's a really big fan of X. So I hope he gets the minutes. I hope he turns into the next Payne Haas or the next best thing at the Broncos. But, yeah, I guess we got to wait and see.
Be interesting to watch him and Haas run.
Yeah, absolutely. And they got 2 big units. And then they've got Takura coming through as well. So you can end up having 3 of those really big units running at you. but I don't know if Kevy wants to go to that sort of Canberra Raiders big bopper style front row pack, because it's all well and good to kind of like the theory, the bigger they are, the harder they fall type logic. It's all well and good to have some big bodies in there, but they've got to be big minute forwards and very mobile forwards in this day and age, I think.
I think he could do it if he. I know it sounds horrible, but if they invested in an 80-minute hooker and they had the 4 big boppers on the bench, I can see that working. But I just can't see Billy doing that.
I'm going to have to jump off, guys. Can I let you two finish off the pod?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
sure thing, mate. We're all pretty much done, mate. You got to do what you got to do. You're a busy man.
I am.
So well, Glenn.
All right, boys. Lovely to see you again, Timmy, and I'll talk to you next week, Dano, and good luck for the beginning of the round, everybody.
Absolutely.
All
Bye,
right,
guys.
enjoy. All righty. We're
Busy
pretty much
man.
wrapped up anyway. So, Glenn's done some a lot of work on TikTok actually with the Leg Up project as well. So getting some fundraising there for the Leg Up project, which is great work he does. All right. Well, may as well finish up here with the bench. So we've got Corey Oates, Jock Madden, Tristan Saylor, Martin Tapau, and Jaden Hunt. Another really good reserve. Like some
Hunt.
big names in there as well. Hunt's
Yeah,
in there as well. Jaden Hunt's another good player. I love watching Jaden Hunt play.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? Like, it's good that the Broncos have got depth this season, and they seem to have depth across most of the positions. Even then, they've got like Jake Moser coming in through the halves. So there is a fair bit of depth there. Surely at some point they find Tristan Saylor a spot. They denied him the release to go over and play in the Super League. You would think if they wanted to keep him, maybe there was some kind of release clause or something that he's allowed to go and play for 12 months and then come back and see how things go. I've said plenty of times on our Off the Bench podcast that I think when Reynolds decides to hang up the boots, I think they will move Reece Walsh into the 6, and maybe that's where Tristan Saylor comes in, and maybe that's part of the deal with him at the moment. They've sort of said, look, mate, wait 12 months and let's wait and see what happens with Reynolds. But, yeah, look, it's an interesting one. I can see a world where they try and start bringing him into 14, Tristan Saylor. Maybe they play with just like a backup hooker or whatever, and then have Tristan Saylor and then have 2 forwards. So maybe guys like Payne Haas, Xavier Willison. I mean, once they've got Piakura and Jordan Ricky there, they can both play 80 minutes. So all of a sudden you start needing less and less guys there on the interchange. And maybe that's how they do it. They have Tristan Saylor, they have Smoothie, they have Willison, and then, maybe a Marty or a Jensen or something like that. They're coming off the bench. So to round out their 17, it's going to be interesting to see. Watch this space.
Yeah, I think they can do it. I think they've got enough big minute front rows, because most teams, a lot of good teams, pretty much most of them will have the 80-minute second rower, no problem. But they struggle to have those big minute forwards, and that's the thing about Payne Haas. He can throw in 80 minutes and be solid for the whole 80 minutes. That's why I liked it. Your forward pack a little bit more. I know it sounds horrible because he's not a great bloke, but when you had Lodge as well, him and Lodge, those guys were just throwing minutes out there for fun. They could have both played the full. Probably I don't think Lodge could play 80, but he could play 60 straight, I reckon.
And I would say the same thing about Tommy Flegler. I really thought Flegler was always just that 5 to 10 minutes short of where I really thought he should be. I thought he's sort of a 65-minute front rower, but just for whatever reason, never really got it unless there was like an injury or something like that. So, an interesting one.
Well, that pretty much wraps this up. What we're going to do now quickly is, unfortunately, I don't get to see the bloody the names that come up here, unfortunately. But there is a question in here. We did talk about Gagai as a cheapie. So this person has said, thoughts on Tane Tui Piki from the Warriors fullback over Gagai as a cheapie. I know my answer, but I'll let you go first, Timmy.
Yeah, look, if he gets named, I don't mind it. But job security is going to be his biggest issue. Does he stay at fullback? Does he squeeze out to a wing or something, or does he just disappear entirely? I think it's too early to tell, and it's really going to depend on news. I mean, the Warriors don't play for another week, so it's going to be interesting to probably wait and see on the injury crisis that they have over there in the backs at the moment, and wait to see how long they reckon he's really going to keep his spot for.
I was under the impression that CNK wasn't that far off. They was actually fighting to be fit for round one. So
yeah, that's what I thought. I thought it was only.
That's why I'm totally against it. I'm totally against doing this. And like the other thing as well is the way it was kind of worded. I'm not sure how he's worded it, but it says over Gagai as a cheapie. Like if you're going to pick him, you pick both. If that was the case, but I just don't think the security's there. I think he's going to be maybe 1 or 2 games if you're lucky, and then gone, and then you're not going to get that pay rise. You're going to have enough in your team until there's another injury, which we don't want to be wishing up on anyone. So I just think it's a no from me.
I think he could end up being the Braden Williami from about 2 or 3 seasons ago, where every man and his dog was on him because he was nice and cheap. You jumped on him, he played the first game, and then magically disappeared for the rest of the season and just sat on your bench and bummed around, and you didn't get anything for him. So he never made any money. But then it got to the point where it was too much of a pain in the bum to get rid of him because he didn't increase in value. I think he sat at about 230K or something for a million years. That's
it. What I'll do actually, so I can see. You probably don't want to appreciate this, but you get to see my face a bit better, so I'll just do that. There we go. Alrighty. We've also got some confirmation here from username Paycheck from YouTube. The field is actually 3 meters shorter, both sides over in Allegiance. So that is a pretty big deal. That's 3 meters. That's 6 meters across.
6 meters. Yeah, that does make a big deal.
Yeah. So I think that's I thought it was something around. I thought it was like you mentioned. It was like 68 meters, and I heard something about like 67.2, but I heard it was a big thing. But I don't know. I haven't got a tape measure out, so I can't confirm that. But it seems like Paycheck seems to be all over it. So, and also another confirmation here that the Roosters are stacked, which we all agree on here. So they have a full team. Is this going to be the year that Roosters don't have an injury crisis and they've got all these players dying to get in?
I think even if they do, they've got enough depth now, and I think that's probably something that they've worked on. I reckon they figured that over the last 2 or 3 years they haven't performed as well as they really should have, and I think that's a depth issue for them. And I think over the last probably 12 months they've focused really heavily on making sure that they do have depth and can get back to the Roosters of old. The fact that they were fighting out for like bottom 8 spots is really concerning for the type of club that the Roosters are. So, look, I see this being a massive bounce back year for the Roosters, and I've been pretty keen on Sam Walker. But like I said earlier in the program, that I just think it's going to be too hard to turn Sam Walker unless he goes all guns blazing from the start. I think it's just going to be too hard to find the cash to turn him into Nathan Cleary if Nathan Cleary starts at where he's priced. It's a little bit different if obviously Cleary drops 150K really quickly. If he goes from a 90-odd average to a 75 average and loses some coin, and then you look at Walker goes the other way, priced at a 60 or whatever it is, if he starts banging out 75s, then obviously that's a very different conversation. So, yeah, I don't know. Like I can see a world where Roosters do finish in the top 2 or 3. I think they've got the depth this year to do it, and that pains me to say it because I can't stand the Roosters.
Yeah, well, I think as far as I'm aware, from what I've seen on television, I don't think the Roosters fans can stand the Roosters because no one ever turns over their bloody games. It's always an empty stadium.
That's exactly right, mate.
That's right. I think Penrith are going to be over there sharing next year as well. So with a new stadium getting built, maybe we can fill it up for them. Alrighty, that about wraps everything up, mate. Thanks for jumping on. Always appreciate it. Make sure you give I'll give you a couple of seconds now to give your boys over at Off the Bench a shout.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you haven't jumped in before, guys, go over to NRL Supercoach Off the Bench. We do basically just about everything with Supercoach. So we did the BBL in the off season, and as soon as that's switched off, we've got straight back into the NRL. So yeah, if you haven't checked us out, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on all the places. The boys are actually on air right now, going live as well. But we've got a guest on tonight, so I took the option to jump on here and be a guest for you boys. So yeah, check us out, NRL Supercoach Off the Bench on Facebook. jump on. We've actually hit a few milestones of late, which has been really good for us. So we only started the Off the Bench podcast about February, March last season, in the first couple of weeks of the season. And yeah, we're just shy of 1,500 members now. So it's been a really big 12 months for us. So yeah, fantastic. Jump on, get involved, have a chat, and leave us some messages. Always got questions.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's always a good, very responsive page over there as well. And one thing I will say is some really good articles are getting thrown out on that page as well. I know yourself and I know Brad chuck up some really, really cool articles up on the stage. Really good to have a bit of a read and get some insights from super coaches. So yeah, it's good. Jump on, everyone. I think we're good partners either here from Tragics to Off the Bench, and yeah, looking forward to working with you guys moving forward. So
yeah, absolutely. The good thing for us too, like there's sort of 5 of us. There's only 4 of us that like to be on the show, but there is 5 of us involved, and we've all got the runs on the board with plenty of top 1,000 finishes. None of us have won it or gotten close to it, I guess you'd say it that way. But or when I say not close, we've finished in the. Brad's had top 10 finishes. Ross and myself and Dave have finished in and around the top 200, 300. So we've certainly got the runs on the board, but it is really good because we do bounce different ideas off each other, and we do generally play the game really differently. Guy plays completely different to the way I play, and I play differently to how Ross and some of the other boys play. So yeah, it is good. We've got plenty of different ideas, and yeah, check us out. NRL Supercoach Off the Bench on Facebook, Spotify, wherever else.
thanks, mate. Thanks, Timmy. Thanks, everyone joining in. Say farewell now. Tune in next week, and we'll have another episode. Good luck this week, and hopefully you get some green arrows, which you obviously will because we're all on 0. So farewell, guys. Peace out.
Stay safe. Be good.